Welcome to the deep dive. If you live in a city, you know that feeling, right? Stepping off, say, a patch of grass onto a dark sidewalk in August. You can practically feel the heat radiating up through your shoes.
Oh, absolutely.
So today we're strapping in to really look at that intense urban heat. It's a critical but often kind of unseen challenge of the climate crisis.
Yeah, and the difference in temperature,
Yeah.
between the city center and the countryside around it, it's pretty staggering. Our sources show cities can be like 5 degrees Celsius hotter, sometimes even more.
5 degrees Celsius. That's a lot.
It is, and this isn't just about being uncomfortable anymore. It's really become a life and death issue. Cities are, the front lines for these extreme heat events, and they disproportionately threaten our most vulnerable residents.
Exactly. So our mission today, it's
Right.
clear, we need to understand why our cities turn into these heat traps, what the experts call the urban heat island effect.
Right, the UHI.
And then we need to distill the, 6 essential strategies, the ones available right now, from simple stuff like white paint to more complex policy changes that we need to make city life sustainable, on a hotter planet.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What is this urban heat island, the UHI? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's this phenomenon where urban areas get significantly warmer than the rural areas nearby.
Okay.
And the temperature swing can be really dramatic. We're talking often 5 degrees C, maybe even up to 10 degrees C hotter. That's 9 to 18 Fahrenheit. And it's particularly noticeable after the sun goes down.
Ah, that nighttime heat retention. That seems crucial, right? Because your body can't cool down overnight.
Exactly.
But why? Why are our cities built like this? What are the core things, the materials that make them giant heat sponges?
Well, it really boils down to two main things: a lack of nature and the basic stuff we build with. So cause number one, asphalt and concrete.
The usual suspect.
Right. They're dark, they're dense, they don't let water through. Think about it like wearing a black t-shirt in the sun. They just soak up solar radiation all day long.
Okay.
But unlike the t-shirt, maybe, they can't get rid of that heat quickly. They hold on to it, that thermal energy, and just slowly radiate it out, long after midnight sometimes.
And we use so much of it. I mean, the scale is just huge. We pave over everything.
We do.
And we remove the one great natural counterbalance.
Which I guess brings us to cause number two, the lack of vegetation.
Spot on. When you remove trees and green spaces, you're basically destroying the natural air conditioning system. It's called evapotranspiration.
Evapotranspiration, okay.
Yeah, it's essentially plants moving water from their roots up to their leaves and then releasing water vapor. They're basically sweating. And that process, that phase change from liquid to gas, it naturally cools the air around them.
So without that, the sidewalks, the roads, they just bake.
They just keep absorbing heat.
Yeah.
And this is where one fact from the sources really jumps out at me. Get this.
Okay.
One single large, mature tree.
It can provide the cooling effect of running 10-room air conditioners for 20 hours a day.
Wow. That's an enormous amount of cooling power. And we just, bulldoze it away for development?
That's often what happens, yeah. Precisely. And cause number three is really just a variation on that materials theme. Dark roofs and dark pavements.
Right, more dark surfaces.
They absorb up to 90% of the sunlight that hits them. So if your city's built mostly with dark materials, you're practically guaranteeing maximum heat retention. It heats up the ground, heats up the air.
Okay, so materials, lack of trees, dark surfaces. What else?
And finally, cause number four kind of adds insult to injury. It's waste heat. Just the heat we generate ourselves through, consumption.
From cars, factories.
Cars, factories, electronics, all that. But the really big culprit here is air conditioning. It's sort of the necessary evil.
The double-edged sword.
Exactly. We cool our buildings inside, but the AC units pump all that waste heat right out onto the street. So it just adds to the overall temperature outside. It compounds the problem.
So you take these basic structural issues of the UHI, and then you layer on climate change more intense, more frequent heat waves.
And you create these incredibly dangerous conditions.
Yeah, which leads us straight to the human cost.
Right.
We hear so much about floods, hurricanes, but heat is often called the silent killer. What really stands out to you from the sources about the risks here?
Well, it's called the silent killer for a reason. Extreme heat, believe it or not, actually causes more deaths each year than hurricanes and floods combined.
Really? More than both?
Yeah, but it rarely gets the same kind of media attention or, frankly, policy focus.
Yeah.
And the victims, they often die alone at home because the body just can't recover if those overnight temperatures stay really high. Your core body temperature gets pushed into dangerous territory.
And this risk, it's not spread evenly across the city, is it? When we look at who's vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely not. It's heavily skewed. The most vulnerable people the elderly, young children, people with pre-existing health conditions, anyone working outdoors, and low-income residents, they're often clustered in the very hottest parts of the city.
Why there specifically?
Well, they're often in housing that's poorly insulated. They might not have working AC or can't afford to run it, and they definitely lack the cooling effect of trees and shade.
That heat inequity, it's stark. I remember reading about a New York City study. They found temperature differences up to 7 degrees C, that's 13 degrees Fahrenheit,
Yeah.
between different neighborhoods.
Yeah, 7 degrees.
And it often came down purely to tree cover and how much pavement there was. Wealthier areas historically got the parks, the trees, while poorer areas were left exposed. These shade deserts, as they call them.
Exactly. And that disparity, that inequity has to drive the conversation about solutions. We need specific, scalable changes to cool down the concrete and build resilience, starting from the ground up.
Okay, let's pivot to that toolkit then, the physical fixes, starting with maybe the simplest one. Solution 1, cool roofs.
Cool roofs are a fantastic, pretty low-tech solution. Basically, instead of using dark, heat-absorbing materials on roofs, you use reflective materials, or even just a specialized white coating.
To bounce the sunlight back.
Exactly. Bounce it back into the atmosphere. Think about it. A standard black roof can get incredibly hot on a sunny day, maybe 80 degrees C, that's 176 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
But just painting it white or using a cool coating can drop that surface temperature by a staggering 30 degrees C.
30 degrees Celsius cooler on the roof itself, that's huge. And that must save energy too, right?
Oh, yeah. The impact is immediate, and it saves money. It helps reduce the overall city air temperature a bit, but critically, our sources say it lowers indoor temperatures by 2 to 3 degrees C. That can cut air conditioning costs by 10, even up to 30%.
That's significant savings.
It is, and cities are doing this. Like New York City's Cool Roofs program, they've already coated over 10 million square feet of rooftops. It shows this is scalable. It works.
Okay, so that's roofs. What about the streets? Solution 2, reflective pavements.
Right, moving from the roof down to the street level. And this is really vital because pavements, roads, parking lots, they aren't just small strips. They make up somewhere between 30% and 50% of the total land area in many cities.
Half the city sometimes, wow.
Yeah, it's a huge surface area.
Yeah.
And black asphalt can easily hit 70 degrees C, that's 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to, literally fry an egg or burn a pet's paws.
This brutal surface temperature. So the idea is similar to cool roofs, lighter colors.
Pretty much. Using light gray reflective sealants or maybe lighter colored concrete mixes instead of black asphalt, the goal is to reduce those surface temperatures. And it works maybe by 10 to 20 degrees.
That's a big drop too.
It is. Los Angeles did a pilot program, you might have seen pictures, where they used this special gray sealant on some streets and they measured temperature reductions of up to 10 degrees C.
So it works. Are there downsides,
Yeah.
challenges?
Well, the cooling benefit is definitely there. But yeah, implementing reflective pavements isn't always straightforward. There's the upfront cost, which can be higher than traditional asphalt.
Right.
And you have to think about potential issues like glare, reflected sunlight bouncing off, maybe bothering nearby residents or drivers. So it's not a magic bullet. It's more of a policy conversation about balancing the benefits public health, cooling against those potential issues.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, solution 3. This feels like the most intuitive one. Urban forests and green spaces. Bringing nature back in.
Yes. And this is absolutely critical infrastructure. We shouldn't just think of it as nice to have aesthetics.
It's functional.
Totally functional. The cooling power comes in 2 ways. First, shade. Just being out of the direct sun can lower surface temperatures by a massive 11 to 25 degrees C.
That alone is huge.
It is. And second, you get that air cooling effect from evapotranspiration we talked about earlier. That can drop the actual air temperature around the trees by 5 to 8 degrees C.
Plus all the other benefits trees bring.
Exactly. Better stormwater management, they capture carbon, improve air quality, and there's strong evidence for boosting mental well-being, too. They're multitaskers.
And critically, thinking about equity, we need to prioritize planting these in those low-income shade desert neighborhoods first, right?
Absolutely essential. We need to combat those historical inequities.
Okay, so we've got cool roofs, cool pavements, more trees. What about getting around the city? Solution 4, shaded transit infrastructure.
Yeah, this is important. It's great to have cool parks, but if getting to the bus stop or waiting for the train or just walking down the street is unbearable, the city doesn't function well in the heat.
True.
So protecting pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, it makes a city usable in summer. Adding simple things like canopies over sidewalks, covered bus shelters, maybe planting trees along walking routes, it reduces the felt temperature significantly,
Yeah.
maybe by 10 to 20 degrees C in the shade.
That makes a huge difference to whether someone chooses to walk or take transit.
Makes it feasible, makes it safer. And we're seeing some cool innovation here, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, cities like Phoenix, I mean, they have to deal with extreme heat. They've created these cool corridors. They use strategic tree planting, but also things like misting stations along walkways.
Instant station's interesting.
Yeah. And other places are integrating solar panels into shade structures. So you get shade, plus you're generating clean electricity right there. It's a really pragmatic combination of climate resilience and clean energy.
That's smart. A double win. Okay, so we've covered the physical stuff, materials, plants, shade. Let's shift gears a bit and look at the bigger picture, the systemic solutions. We need policies too, right? Starting with solution 5, heat alert systems, or HAPs.
Yes, heat action plans. These are absolutely essential, partly because heat is that silent killer. It often catches people when they're alone, maybe unaware of just how dangerous the conditions have become.
So how do these HAPs work?
They rely on coordinated data. Meteorologists and public health officials figure out specific danger thresholds. It might be, say, 2 consecutive days forecast above a certain heat index, or, and this is really critical, when the overnight low temperature is projected to stay dangerously high, preventing the body from recovering.
And when those thresholds are hit, alerts go out.
Exactly. Public warnings, advice on staying cool, information about public cooling centers, maybe outreach to vulnerable groups.
Do we know if they actually work? Do they save lives?
Yes, the evidence is pretty compelling. Ahmedabad, India is a great example. They implemented a comprehensive heat action plan awareness campaigns, opening cooling centers, training medical staff, and one study found a dramatic 61% reduction in heat-related deaths after they put the plan in place.
61%. That's incredible. Shows the power of coordinated action.
It really does. But, and this is the crucial equity check, the alerts have to reach the people most at risk.
Right. Not everyone is online or trusts official messages.
Precisely. So effective ATs need low-tech strategies too. Things like distributing leaflets in multiple languages, using community groups or neighborhood watch to check on elderly residents, making sure cooling centers are genuinely accessible, maybe even providing free transport there via shaded routes. It needs to be multi-layered.
Okay, good point. Now finally, the really big long-term policy lever. Solution 6, updated building codes. You mentioned earlier that our codes are kind of outdated.
Yeah, this is potentially the most transformative solution in the long run, because we're still building millions of square feet of new buildings every year, and many are built to codes written for a climate that, well, frankly, just doesn't exist anymore.
So what needs to change in the codes?
We need systemic change, mandates for heat resilience right from the blueprint stage, things like requiring cool roofs and maybe even cool walls, mandating high-quality insulation to keep heat out in the first place.
Makes sense.
Designing for natural ventilation, encouraging cross breezes, and including permanent built-in shading like awnings or overhangs over windows, especially west-facing ones. All of this drastically reduces the need to rely so heavily on AC.
Which, as we said, just pumps more heat outside.
Exactly. It tackles the problem at the source.
Is anyone doing this well? Are there examples?
California's Title 24 Energy Code is often held up as a benchmark. It has progressively stronger requirements for energy efficiency, including features that help buildings stay cooler with less mechanical cooling. Studies show homes built to newer versions of the code use significantly less energy, maybe 40% less, and stay more comfortable with less AC compared to older builds.
So it's effective. But I imagine there's pushback, developers complaining about costs.
Oh, absolutely. That's the constant battle. Developers look at the upfront cost of better insulation, reflective roofing, maybe more complex window designs. But city leaders, public health officials, they need to hammer home the long-term benefits. Massive savings in public health costs down the line, less strain on the electricity grid during heat waves, lower energy bills for occupants, and just building a more resilient city overall. The long-term savings, both public and private, usually dwarf the initial investment. Building codes ensure that every new building becomes part of the solution, not part of the problem.
That point about cost brings us back to this thread running through everything.
Yeah.
The equity problem. Who benefits from these changes, and who might get left behind or even harmed?
Yeah, this is critical. Our sources really underscore this concept of heat inequity. And it has deep historical roots because of policies like redlining and decades of unequal investment.
Like you mentioned the New York study.
Exactly. Those historically marginalized neighborhoods, often communities of color, frequently have the least green space, the most pavement, the oldest housing stock. And as a result, they can be significantly hotter, 5 degrees C, even 7 degrees C, hotter than wealthier, greener neighborhoods, sometimes just blocks away.
So they're hit first and worst by the heat itself. Layered vulnerability.
Correct. And then comes this really tricky policy paradox we have to confront: green gentrification.
Ah, right. Explain that.
So cities rightly decide to invest in these heat-vulnerable areas. They plant trees, build new parks, maybe upgrade infrastructure with cool pavements or shaded walkways.
Yeah.
These are all good things,
Glad.
but these improvements make the neighborhood more desirable. Property values go up, rents increase, taxes increase. And the tragic irony is that the original residents, the very people who have endured the heat inequity for years and most need these improvements,
They get priced out.
they often get displaced,
Yeah.
pushed out by rising costs. So the policy lesson is crucial. Climate resilience investments, like new parks or mass tree planting in vulnerable areas, must be actively coupled with strong policies to protect affordable housing and prevent displacement. Otherwise, we risk exacerbating inequity, not fixing it.
That's a really important warning. So if we accept that climate adaptation has to be equitable, what does that mean in terms of who does what? Shared responsibility.
It absolutely demands a whole society approach. Cities have to lead, no question. They need to legislate setting those strong, updated building codes, funding green infrastructure projects equitably.
Okay, the city leads. What about others?
Businesses, developers, architects,
Yeah.
they need to innovate. They need to prioritize passive cooling designs, things that work with nature and physics, over just defaulting to bigger, more energy-hungry AC systems, thinking beyond minimum code requirements.
And what about us, citizens?
We have a role, too. On an individual level, maybe planting trees if you can, checking on vulnerable neighbors during heat waves, and collectively advocating for those equitable policies, pushing local government to prioritize cooling investments in the hottest, most underserved neighborhoods first.
So it really takes everyone.
Yeah, heat-proofing our cities isn't just a technical fix of paint and pavement. It's fundamentally a policy challenge, deeply intertwined with historical injustice and the need for equitable solutions.
That's a really powerful way to synthesize the sources we looked at. We've established that building climate resilience, making our cities livable in the heat, it really requires this combination. Simple, often low-tech infrastructure, cool roofs, trees, shade, combined with high-impact policy like those heat alert systems, and crucially updated forward-looking building codes.
And throughout our sources, there's this compelling case being made. Shade, cooling, resilience, these need to be seen as basic human rights in the climate change era, not luxuries reserved for the wealthy neighborhoods.
A human right.
Yeah. So maybe the final thought to leave our listeners with is this. Given those deep historical roots of heat inequity, we discussed that 5 degrees C to 7 degrees C difference directly linked to things like redlining. What kind of accountability measures, what specific policies do we need to ensure that climate resilience is truly guaranteed for everyone? Not just implemented where it's easiest or most profitable for developers, but delivered first and foremost to those who need it most.
That's the essential question, isn't it? How do I ensure resilience for all? Definitely something to think about.